I don't believe it. She's taken the last mini Baby Bell, mini real cheese.
Kellogg's Crunchy Nut Cornflakes are delicious flakes of corn encrusted with honey, nuts, and brown sugar. Altogether, quite irresistible. Kellogg's Crunchy Nut Cornflakes. The trouble is, they taste too good.
How about this for a greasy lot of washing up? So I thought you lot could do it today. OK, everyone, so we'll test Fairy against the best of these well-known lemon brands, right? To start with, both do well. But after a while, it's a different story.
Greasy.
But Fairy keeps on cutting through the grease. So just look how much more Fairy can do. Because Fairy lasts and lasts and lasts.
Welcome, listeners of Illusion to Temporal Discussion, the episode-by-episode Nightmare Retrospective podcast. I'm Martin Harder, and I was a witness. Get me a reporter. Call April O'Neil in all this case. Hey, you better hurry up. There's no time to waste. We need help like quick on the double. Have pity on the city man. It's in trouble. We need heroes like the Lone Ranger when Tonto came pronto. When there was danger, they didn't say we'd be there in half an hour because they displayed turtle power.
And I'm Martin O'Doney. Let's face it, what else can I say to that? It's the only possible response to that, isn't it? I could have gone into the John Barnes rap from World in Motion, but I thought, no.
The fourth incarnation of the greater game is almost upon us, but before we get started with it, we'd like to take our customary look at what's been going on during the off-season. In the past, we've limited ourselves to the number one singles and movies released during the break, but since we've been looking at news reports during Series 3 of the show, we'd like to do the same here. With that in mind, we decided to split Series 3's Episode 0 into two parts. Today, we'll be focusing on the movies and singles, and in a couple of weeks, we'll be taking a look at our favourite news stories from the off-season. So this is Series 4, Episode 0, Part 1. So, let's kick off with a clip from Going Live, shall we?
Reporters than I've ever seen before, more cameras than I've ever seen before, round the corners more fans than I've ever seen before. The guys have just gone in, it's Bros, Kylie, Jason, they've all popped inside now, so with a bit of luck we may be able to at least catch up with them for a few seconds before they start exercising their vocal cords.
It's Christmas time. There's no need to be afraid.
At Christmas time, we let him light and we banish shade. And in our world of plenty, we can spread a smile of joy.
You know, with the record today, do you know,
Oh yeah, I've got three big quite long lines.
camera, don't really go to camera.
Yeah, right.
So, it doesn't start very promisingly, does it? In terms of the singles.
We've already really talked about Do They Know It's Christmas, haven't we, by Band Aid 2. It originally hit number one on the 17th of December and was number one until the 7th of January.
Yeah, we appreciate the good spirit of the British people in their intention behind buying it, but it doesn't change the fact it's a rehash of what had already been done before.
Was their intention of buying it being to keep Hanging Tough off number one for as long as possible?
That was a great public service that the British people did themselves by keeping Hanging Tough off the top for a while.
Yeah, unfortunately, it didn't last. New Kids on the Block hanging tough. But number one from the 7th of January until the 21st of January. So quite some time.
That was a painful fortnight, a really painful fortnight. I honestly can't think of a single song by New Kids on the Block I even find bearable. I think a few times I'd heard Tonight, I was just about okay with it, but after hearing it about 3 or 4 times, I'd even grown to detest that. New Kids on the Block themselves, as they've become old fogies on the cutting stone, and it's not a cutting stone; it's a beheading stone. That's it. It should have been a beheading stone back then, to be honest. But yeah, they themselves have largely said that they can't stand the stuff they were doing back then, and I give them credit. I totally agree with them on that. I think they are absolutely spot on.
They were a bit of a phenomenon at the time, though, weren't they? They were massive.
But nobody knows why.
No.
With the Spice Girls, you could at least figure out that it was because the media were telling everybody that they were great, and so everybody believed they were great. That's what happens with a lot of pop phenomenons. With the New Kids on the Block, absolutely nobody could possibly have been fooled.
Well, we do know that they were relatively conventionally attractive young blokes playing to the teenage girl market. And that's pretty much it. And they milked it for all it was worth. They had their songs. They had a Saturday morning cartoon.
Oh my God, I've forgotten that. And now you've got to reminded me of it, you...
I'm ashamed to say that I've actually seen a few episodes of it.
Oh God, I saw about 5 minutes of one episode, and I don't even know why I bothered doing that. I don't know why I thought I should give it a chance, but oh my God.
Well, I was a young man with a sister who was of the New Kids age.
Yeah, but my sister had moved out by then. We'd left her behind in Devon.
And next we have Tears on My Pillow by Kylie Minogue, which was number one from the 21st of January until the 28th of January. It's okay.
For a long, long time, for well over 30 years, it's been very, very fashionable to knock Kylie Minogue. So let's do it.
Okay.
I do actually quite like some of her songs. I do quite genuinely being quite honest, I do quite like some of her songs. I don't like I Should Be So Lucky. Tears on My Pillow's a bit schmaltzy for me. But she did some good stuff around that time as well. Part of the problem really is the Stock Aitken Waterman effect, which is basically every single track coming out of the UK at the time had exactly the same back rhythm to it. It really was cut and paste recording. But I think for all that, she did rise above it, and I think she deserves a bit more credit than she probably gets.
Coming up, we've got a run of songs that are considered classics of their era. Some of them aren't that great. Some of them are really good.
Some of them are overrated, yes, but I can understand why people like them. I wouldn't say any of the remaining ones, well, with one very, very big exception, right at the end. Up until then, 1990 was actually a pretty good year for music, I thought.
So this next song coming up is a great song.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic song. I hate the title, but it's a fantastic song.
It's been 7 hours and 15 days since you took your love away.
Nothing compares, U2.
Yes. Specifically, I hate the way the title is written.
Yeah.
If it had been Nothing Compares to You, that would have been fine. But Nothing Compares, number two, letter U.
Yeah. I don't know whether O'Connor was trying to sort of get on the U2 bandwagon there, but she definitely wasn't copying their style of music.
Just to be clear, it was Sinead O'Connor, Nothing Compares to You.
From 28th of January all the way through to the 25th of February. That's pretty good going by the standards of that year. It's one of the things that Sinead O'Connor was always really good at. She manages to make her songs not just a well-sung song, but also an atmosphere. So there's always a really great chord in the background of the music that's going all the way through the music. So at no stage do you have any awkward silences or anything. It's great for Nightmare fans, obviously, because it always feels like there's something slightly surreal going on, something sort of slightly, what's the word? Oh God, I haven't had enough sleep. Something ethereal, that's the word. Something ethereal going on in the background.
So this is Sinead O'Connor pre-cutting up photos of the Pope.
She suddenly became unacceptable in the Republic of Ireland.
She became outspoken, didn't she?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
No. So next we have one. I'm not particularly keen on this genre of music.
It's weaker than the other ones that I've praised, but it's still catchy.
Tank fly, boss walk, jam, nitty gritty. You're listening to the boy from the big bad city. This is Jam Hot. This is Jam Hot.
So the song is Dub Be Good to Me by Beats International featuring Lindy Layton,
who really did very little before and very little since. It was top of the chart even longer than Nothing Compares to You. It was 25th of February all the way to 25th of March.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my goodness, that was that was a long stay at the top. So for a song that isn't overloaded with energy, that's quite impressive.
Yeah.
You got nothing to add to that. Okay.
No, I don't like the song.
Oh, okay.
It's not because the song is particularly bad. I don't like that genre of music.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I don't really have much to add.
Well, you're right. When you're in that position, there really isn't a lot else to say, is there? Because you won't be able to analyze it because you won't have analyzed it in any way. So anyway, from the 25th of March all the way through to the 8th of April.
And following on from that...
This actually dominated Wimbledon coverage that year, I remember. There was adverts for Wimbledon on the BBC, and they used this tune as the background music for it.
So the song was by Snap. It was number one from the 25th of the 3rd, 1990 to the 8th of the 4th, 1990.
Perhaps rather an impressive overachievement, given there's so many stretches of silence in it. It's called The Power. Nothing to do with Stan Bush's song from Transformers the movie. That was The Touch.
I see. I got mixed up with that.
Yeah, I thought you might. The next one, I think, is one of the all-time great Madonna songs.
Great and Madonna.
It happens.
Bit of an oxymoron, isn't it?
It happens. It probably would have been even greater if it actually had somebody who could sing, but it's Vogue, and I think I have to admit it.
Vogue.
Yeah, the hand dancing that was invented as an entire sort of dancing industry just from this one song alone is a legacy worthy of any pop music. It's magnificent, and anytime I've heard it, I've never stopped what I was doing just to listen to it. And just picture all the hand movements being done on the screen again. I take it you're not as impressed as me, but from the expression on your face.
No, I don't mind. I don't mind this song, to be honest.
No, you don't mind it.
No.
Okay. Well, it is still a reflection of the fact that it was a rather impressive single, that it stayed at the top from the 8th of April all the way through to the 6th of May. So that's, again, near enough a month right up at the top. It was supplanted by one of the all-time greats by anybody, depending how you look at it, I suppose. But it was one that was to dominate the summer, and was even used as incidental music when they were doing reviews of action from the World Cup that year. Does anybody know what it is yet? There was also an enormous legal controversy surrounding it, because the lead singer was originally supposed to get equal credit for the single, but in the end the guy doing the musical instruments got sole credit, and so eventually the lead singer went off and had to do his own version. Do you know what it is? Well, you do, because you've got the thing in front of you.
Oh yeah.
So you want to be free, live your life the way you wanna be. Will you give if we cry? Will we
So the song is Killer. It's credited to the Acid House DJ Adamski.
It is indeed, but it should actually be 50% credited to Seal, who went on to create a lot of superb music throughout the 1990s.
Oh yes, Kiss from a Rose.
Yeah,
Fantastic
fantastic. Crazy, possibly my all-time favorite song. That was just a few months after this. His own version of Killer, which is different but but just as good as the original. It is actually quite a pop culture phenomenon, this song, and over 30 years on, it still makes waves. I think there's something like 5 different bands have now made their own versions.
George Michael released a version.
He did, yes. There was a German band. Their name was 3 initials. I can't remember exactly what they were. That's it, ATB, correct. Well done. Oh, well, you'll definitely get a prize from a pub quiz for that one day.
Well, he was actually a DJ, not a band, but
yeah, that's right. Yeah, technically, yeah. But they made one in, I think it was 2002. I think it was
1999.
Oh, was it as far back as that? Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that means there was.
Can you tell I've got the Wikipedia page open?
Yeah, I had my suspicions, but but that means there were 4 different versions of the song released as singles in less than 10 years. That is a sign of how influential it was in the 1990s. So that stayed at the top from the 6th of May to the 3rd of June, the day after my birthday, and it was replaced by another one that has World Cup connections, but more direct World Cup connections. It wasn't just the BBC happened to choose it, something in the background. Do you know what it is at home, everybody?
Well, some of the crowd are on the pitch. Well, some of the crowd are on the pitch. They think it's all over, but it is now.
Express yourself, create the space. You know you can win, don't give up the chase. Beat the man, take him on. You never give up, it's one-on-one.
It was actually the England football team's World Cup song. It was made by New Order. They were okay, I suppose. They rather disappeared off the scene again after this.
Yeah, this was probably their most well-known song, I'd say.
Probably. It was called World in Motion, this one, and it featured another rap track from John Barnes. I don't know if you remember the Anfield rap from a couple of years earlier. John Barnes started his rapping career with that one. I quite like World in Motion. I think if you asked me to choose the best England World Cup song, I'd probably have to go with Three Lions. World in Motion, it's good. The problem is most of the song is just a generic song, and then at the end of it, you suddenly got this constant chanting of England, which makes you suddenly thinking you're doing a different song altogether.
Yeah.
And the video is just cheese from start to finish.
On the 17th of June 1990, we had our first and only double A side for the period with Stroke by Elton John.
Quite rare for Elton John to actually get a #1 single. People can be quite shocked to discover that I think his first #1 single was in 1988. He'd been around for like 16 years. But yeah, I think it was mainly for Sacrifice. What's really impressive about it is how long this stayed at #1. It was,
yes.
I think it was the longest stay at #1 of the entire summer. 17th of June, as you say, all the way to the 22nd of July.
And it only got knocked off #1 because the next song was part of a global phenomenon.
I have to admit, I hate rap. I really, you know, good rap or bad rap, John Barnes rap, anything like that, I don't like it. But I did get caught in the net with this one. I also have to stress, I do not like the franchise at all.
Oh, I love it. I'm a huge fan.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm right, you're wrong. My brother was absolutely adored this particular franchise and I've been following it eagerly for the previous year or so. I was really every time this particular cartoon was on TV. A bit of a giveaway, isn't it? I did start to appreciate some of the one-liners that one of the characters was frequently getting. Interestingly, it was the bad guys. I was actually starting to like. And what that says about the heroes, I don't know.
You can't beat a bit of James Avery, though.
Yeah, okay.
Good old Uncle Phil.
I do admit that after initially being completely nonplussed by this, after listening to it a few times, I did actually find myself getting rather taken in. It's not saying very much, but I wouldn't go so far as to say that this one is actually probably my all-time favorite rap.
It's actually, I mean, it's Jason. It tells the plot of the movie.
Such as it is.
But it's got some genuinely good rhymes in it.
It has. I mean, I think if they'd got these guys in to write the dungeon ditties, they could probably carry them on into season 4.
So we should probably put people out of their misery if they haven't guessed yet.
Unfortunately, a lot of people actually put into misery when they realised that we're going to play a clip of it. Partners in Crime, which for some reason they think is incredibly clever to spell Kryme.
I know. How dare they spell something with a K?
Yeah, I can't imagine what's going on in their minds there. The rap is called Turtle Power. Turtle Power! And it was basically for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the original movie.
Honestly, there's like genuinely good, right? Like, we need heroes like the Lone Ranger when Tonto came pronto. When there was danger, they didn't say he'd be there in half an hour because they displayed turtle power. Turtle power! That's brilliant.
That is actually cleverly done. Yeah, it is quite good. It was actually called the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles over here because they had to cut out some of the more violent bits of cartoon, which made them seem a lot less like ninjas.
Including most of the use of their weapons. Here's another rhyme I really like from the song. Then from out of the dark came an awesome sound, shouting cowabunga as they hit the ground. From the field of weeds, the heroes rescued the flower because they possessed turtle power. Turtle power! I just like that imagery.
There's a lot of density of vocabulary in there, isn't there?
Yeah.
You don't normally associate rap with sort of deeply philosophical, heavy literary debates, but there's an awful lot in there for a wordsmith to enjoy. It stayed top of the chart for a long while. 22nd of July, it hit #1, and it stayed there till the 19th of August.
Which unfortunately brings us to something else.
Yeah, so this comes to the last one before Nightmare returned to our screens. We have what has to go down as the most embarrassing song ever made, and this is actually a remake. It's that bad. And it got just about the least talented presenter on British television throughout the 1980s a #1 hit single.
I'm not sure I would go that far.
Well, all right, there was Eamon Andrews was still around in the early 80s, I suppose, so you could always go against him. But certainly one of the most irritating presenters of the 1980s.
Yes, and he didn't even sing it.
We should probably thank heavens for small mercies there. But yeah, it has to go down as an incredible embarrassment. And it was probably the death knell of the Wide Awake Club. To give you a clue as to exactly who we're talking about, we're not talking about Tommy Boyd, even with the Night the Link. Whack-a-day, whack-a-day, whack-a-day is your clue. Another one is...
There was a gritting machine named after this song.
Yeah, okay, that'll give it away. Word association game. Mustn't pause, mustn't hesitate, mustn't...
Everyone look at me go blah, look at me go blah, look at me go blah.
Do you know who we're talking about, everybody? It actually doesn't go with his name, but it's Timmy Mallet as the pseudo lead singer of Bomb Ballerina. And the song that they were doing was Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny. I can't bring myself to finish it. I'm sorry.
Yellow polka dot bikini that she wore for the first time today. Oh, yeah. And itsy bitsy teeny weeny yellow polka dot bikini. So in the locker she wanted to stay.
He didn't have to do that. I'm pretty sure everybody already realised.
I've actually been following Timmy Mallet recently. He's been cycling around the UK, and these these really kind of interesting little videos and stuff where he just looks at sites around the UK and paints.
Sorry. Let me cut in there. Sorry, you just used the word Timmy Mallet and interesting in the same sentence. Yes. I need a couple minutes to process this concept. It's completely abstract to me.
In college, I was actually best friends with Timmy Mallet's nephew.
That is a very, very weak attempt at name dropping, Mr. H. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure Timmy Mallet's a lovely bloke, really.
Little known fact, you know, they did the bit whenever they got mail or whatever, they had the post box come on, and there was someone inside the post box, and they would hand
hand it out like sort of like Thing from the Addams Family.
Yes.
Or was it the
That
Monsters?
was actually Violet Berlin from Bad Influence.
Oh, was it?
It was her first TV role.
God, she started low, didn't she? She wasn't even allowed to show her face at the time. Goodness me, she climbed a bit, didn't she?
We have one other thing to quote unquote thank Timmy Mallet for, and that's for discovering Mike Myers.
Extreme close up! Wow!
He did, yeah, he did. This is now my opportunity to do a bit of very unconvincing name dropping. Mike Myers actually has a lot of links to the UK, especially Scotland and the northwest of England. And I was working at a place in Salford about 15 years ago, and I was actually sitting next to Mike Myers' cousin, who was working at the same place as me, fellow Liverpool fan as well. I've also sort of, by extension, can say that I've got a link to one of Hollywood's biggest stars. So it's a very, very tenuous attention. But he's got pictures of himself with Mike Myers.
So Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny was number one from the 19th of August, 1990, all the way up to the 9th of September, 1990. So that brings us up to Series 4 of Nightmare.
Up to date, yeah, that's where it started. I was say it is a pretty impressive selection of songs there. There are the odd dips, and there's a chasm that's dropped off at the end. But yeah, that's actually a pretty impressive year, at least at the very top of the charts.
Because we had such great songs and they held on to number one for quite some time, each one, it means that we've got a lot more movies than we actually have songs this year.
A couple of them I think we've touched on before,
Yeah.
so we shouldn't waste too much time on them. But again, there's some good stuff in there.
So let's start with the movies, shall we? When we left off last series, we had Back to the Future Part 2 at number one, and it's still at number one this week as well.
Yes. Well, it's still before Christmas, of course. Still my favourite of the Back to the Future trilogy. It gets a little bit more convoluted than the other two. And the other two get convoluted enough, perhaps. Some people think it's a bit too convoluted for its own good. I rather like the parallel universe that they wind up in. That's an outright dystopia. I really rather enjoy that.
We probably don't need to mention that it was directed by Robert Zemeckis and starred Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox, but we just did anyway. We're going to play a little game here because I've been looking at the Rotten Tomato scores for each film. You haven't got a copy of the Rotten Tomato scores, have you?
Oh, I can see that. You were waiting to pounce on me with this, I can see.
So we're going to play a bit of a play your cards right type higher and lower game here. So Back to the Future Part 2 had a Rotten Tomatoes rating that was, I think, criminally low.
Yeah, I agree. I'm slightly shocked as it's 63%. That should be at least, I would say, 12% above that, at least. Yeah, it's an excellent film. It's a tremendous entertainment.
And it started its journey at number one on the 15th of December 1989. It was number one for 2 weeks.
Yeah, it just failed to get into the new year at the top. The successor was when Kylie Minogue decided to return to acting. And I've got to say what I said earlier about Madonna. Similar thing could be said about Kylie Minogue. She sang better than she looked. She acted better than she sang. And she can't act. Just watch her in Doctor Who about 12 years ago if you doubt that.
The film is The Delinquents, directed by Chris Thompson and starring Kylie Minogue, Charlie Schlatter and Bruno Lawrence.
In 1957, my mother thought I was a little girl. But that summer I discovered life, rock and roll, and love with a boy named Brownie Hanson. We only kissed.
Well, that's where it starts.
I know nothing about this film. I'm literally going to look it up now.
I did watch it once, purely out of curiosity, because there was so much hype about it when it was at the cinema. I then saw about, I think it was something like 1993, it was getting its debut on terrestrial television. Oh, I might as well see what all the fuss was about. Nothing has stuck in my memory from it. I can't even remember exactly what the plot was.
Australian coming-of-age romantic drama. Apparently it's based on a book. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
There's a bit of a controversy because it was basically Kylie Minogue's first on-screen sex scene.
It was their first movie. It got to number one on the 29th of December 1989 and stayed there for 2 weeks.
Given that they've only given 63% to Back to the Future Part 2, they must be setting a very, very high bar here. So I'm going to put 39%.
64%.
You're joking!
1% higher than Back to the Future Part 2.
You are lying.
No.
Not a chance.
You can check it if you want.
Oh, no, I'm not going to bother. Oh, my God.
Moving on, we've got one of my favourite films, which is Parenthood.
There's still one last frontier. One place where an ordinary man can be a hero.
Howdy, partner.
That's great!
A job that takes skill, patience, and guts.
Your lower intestine.
A job full of wonderful surprises.
You feel like you want to throw up?
Okay.
Parenthood.
Yo, why are you just standing there? Oh, sweet.
Waiting for her head to spin around.
Starring Steve Martin, Mary Steenburgen, Diane Wiest, and Rick Moranis.
Yeah, it's actually quite a good cast, that. I think I prefer Back to the Future Part 2, but obviously I should prefer The Delinquents instead. But yeah, it's a good cast, and it's a very engaging movie. Everything that Ron Howard does well, he does right here. I've always liked Rick Moranis. Mary Steenburgen, who's was also in Back to the Future Part 3. She was always a very good actress.
And the kids in the film as well. The kids in the film are brilliant, especially the kid who plays Kevin, who appears in a later film in our list as well.
They were better than their age, weren't they?
Yes.
With a lot of films, you're going to get an awful lot of stiff, almost like Dungeoneers, actually. So sort of very wooden, very hesitant performances, but they're actually pretty good here.
It got to number 1 on the 12th of the 1st, 1990, and was there for 2 weeks.
I think that actually counts as a pretty long time on this list.
The Delinquents was 64%. Do you think Parenthood is higher or lower?
Nothing for a pair in this game, I take it.
No.
I'm going to say higher. Higher. I'm going to say higher.
92%.
92. Maybe it's just a lot more picky people watch Back to the Future than watch Parenthood. I don't know. Black Rain from the 26th of January.
A New York City cop on the trail of a killer. From the back alleys of Manhattan.
Well, our victims are certainly Yakuza.
To the streets of Japan.
Because of your negligence, a man we've wanted for a long time has been lost.
Come on, we'll take some of the heat for this, but we're not taking the rap.
Yeah, it was Ridley Scott when he was still doing relatively good films. Although I don't think this was one of them, personally.
No, I don't either. This was about the time when Michael Douglas was at the height of his fame and popularity, and he wasn't famous or particularly popular.
You say that, but this was the first film he did after winning an Oscar for Wall Street.
Yeah, but does anybody really associate him with that? He might have won an Oscar for it, but he wasn't actually. He didn't really become a sort of any kind of pop culture element to him as a result of it. Whereas it did after Basic Instinct. Andy Garcia is also in it, and Ken Takura. I get the feeling that this one actually has a high rating, but it's more because Ridley Scott directed it than because of itself. I think it probably got about 75%.
So I'll take that as lower. 52%.
Ah, right. So we were right then. It's crap.
It got to number 1 on the 26th of January 1919, was there for 2 weeks. Following that was a childhood quote-unquote classic. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids by Joe Johnston.
It was a quiet Saturday morning.
Zelensky! Give it a rest! It's Saturday!
Professor Wayne Zelensky was hard at work on his new invention.
This thing works. It'll put us right up there with the invention of electricity.
That didn't quite work.
Did you get the machine to work?
A few more bugs to get out.
Then something quite unexpected
Where are
happened.
the kids?
I haven't seen them since I left this morning.
It shrunk the kids.
Nick, what happened?
It works. Diane, I got something real important to tell you.
Are you trying to tell me the machine works? Do the kids know?
Well, yeah, the kids know.
That's great!
It's not that great.
Why?
I shrunk the kids, and the Thompson kids too. They're about this big. Threw them out with the trash.
What?
They're in the backyard.
And Rick Moranis is back. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids has become a full franchise now. They're harmless. Okay, I think they passed the time okay.
I quite enjoy watching Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, but the franchise did definitely suffer from diminishing returns.
Well, they always do when they're just making a sequel for the sake of having a sequel.
So it starred Rick Moranis, Matt Frewer, and Marcia Strassman.
What would its rating be? Ooh, I think it's going to be a bit higher.
78% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Go to hell, Rotten Tomatoes. You're all liars.
We all know Rotten Tomatoes means dick, don't we?
Well, if we didn't before, we definitely do now.
So it got to number 1 on the 9th of February 1990 and stayed there for 3 weeks. Next up, we have Born on the 4th of July, directed by Oliver Stone and starring Tom Cruise, Brian Larkin, and Raymond J. Barry.
I wanted to be a good American. I wanted to serve my country. I couldn't wait to fight my first war.
We got him! We got him! Oh, get out!
Let the word go forth.
Oh, Daddy, the soldier!
And the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans.
Your brother's a hard worker, Tommy. Win or lose. School, sports, life. As long as you do your best. That's what matters to God.
I've never seen this one.
No, me neither. Higher or lower than 78%?
Lower.
86%. But it did only stay at number one for 1 week, which is the shortest.
Yeah, joint shortest.
Yeah.
The next one actually is a film I've always rather enjoyed, although I probably should treat it as a bit of a guilty pleasure in some ways, because there's the odd scene in it that really shouldn't be broadcast today. The War of the Roses with Danny DeVito and Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner.
It always starts with the little things.
And that phony laugh.
Okay, all right, maybe overdid it. Let me have it.
If love is blind,
Now I got you.
marriage is like having a stroke.
When I watch you eat, when I look at you lately, I just want to smash your face in.
Smash my face.
I want a divorce.
You can't have one.
When a couple starts keeping score, there is no winning. It's only degrees of losing.
Douglas and Turner have got a bit of history, haven't they?
Yes.
DeVito was also directing it. It's got nothing to do with the medieval civil war that you might think. It's sort of a hilarious sort of overview of two people who are married and yet hate each other intensely.
Yeah. They present a facade of a perfect couple.
Yes, that effort to make that facade and bottling up what they really feel actually makes their real feelings even worse. Some of the more violent scenes, though, are very violent. Today, I think Michael Bay would say, look, hang on, should we really include that? But it is a guilty pleasure of mine, The War of the Roses. It is entertaining. It does have some legitimate points to make. But there's stuff in there that I don't think you should really include today.
It got to number one on the 9th of March, 1990, and stayed there for 2 weeks.
It did indeed.
Higher or lower than 86%?
I'm going to say lower. I actually think this should be one of the highest so far, but I think it will be lower than that.
It is lower.
80?
85%.
85? Yeah, I'll go with that. Yeah. You're not liars after all, Rotten Tomatoes.
Next, we have Tango and Cash.
Meet Ray Tango. He likes money. Easy come, easy go, but doesn't bother with cash. Meet Gabe Cash. He won't dance around trouble and doesn't mind stepping on toes.
I hate you karate guys.
Two of LA's top rival cops are having a great time staying in rhythm.
You know me, huh? Yeah, I hear you're the second best cop in LA.
That's funny. I hear the same thing about you.
But they're going to have to work together, even if it kills them.
Right now!
We'll take it.
No, that's one of a kind.
We won't put a scratch on it. Did you sleep with my sister?
I was so drunk, I don't remember, okay?
Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell. Tango and Cash.
I'm going to let you say who directed this one.
What, Andrei Konchalovsky and Albert Magnoli?
Well done.
You can pronounce that. Can you pronounce the name of the first actor correctly?
Sylvester Stallone.
No, you can't. It's Sylvester Stallone. Then Kurt Russell, back when he was still quite famous. And Terry Hatcher, of course, would later become much more famous in The Adventures of Superman and...
Wasn't she a Bond girl as well?
Yes.
Tomorrow Never Dies. Tango and Cash, it's basically like a buddy cop comedy action film.
I think it came as a bit of a surprise to a lot of the media when it got to to the top. I think it was very much on the strength of the fact that it was Stallone and Kurt Russell.
It's very much of its time, mismatched LAPD crime fighting duo. They have to put their differences aside to take down an evil kingpin.
It's a bit like Dragnet all over again, isn't it? And so many other films.
Yeah, Dragnet, Lethal Weapon, Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Same formula.
It got to number 1 on the 23rd of March, 1919, stayed there for 2 weeks.
Oh, what rating would again, I can't really give.
You know it's going to be lower, don't you?
I hope it will. I'd say 63%.
Oh, you're being generous.
Oh, is it lower than that? Oh, good. This is promising. Lower, lower, lower.
It is the worst reviewed film on the list. 31%.
Result. I know I'm prejudging things here, but result.
I'm going to change it up a bit because the next film is part of a trilogy.
Yes.
I'm going to see if you can work out what the scores were for the entire trilogy.
Oh, bloody hell.
So the next film on our list is Look Who's Talking, directed by Amy Heckerling and starring John Travolta, Kirstie Alley, and Olympia Dukakis.
Put me back in! Put me back in!
So you're the one that's been kicking me.
You're the one that ate all that spicy food.
Now Mikey's mommy needs his help.
I'm gonna get you the best daddy there is.
All right, I'm on the case too.
But when you think like this little guy,
Boy, I gotta think about getting my own place.
there's a lot to distract you.
One of those little furry things over your eyes. No, let me grab one. Come here. There we go.
At the time, John Travolta was really known for Grease.
It was before he got his real career revival in 1994 with Pulp Fiction. He really was in quite a trough at this point. So I was a bit surprised that Kirstie Alley was prepared to work with him because she was actually really popular at this time. And Olympia Dukakis is actually probably more famous at this day and age being related to Mike Dukakis.
Bruce Willis also starred in it as the voice of Mikey.
Yes, it did. Some people would argue that was the greatest display of face acting he ever did in cinemas. I do remember liking Travolta's performance in this, and that was quite unusual at the time. At that point, everybody associated Travolta with great dancing and wooden acting, and everybody was right. But his performances in this were actually pretty good.
There is some fun to be had with this movie.
There was one of Kirstie Alley's dream sequences in it when she was predicting the future wrongly. And Travolta would do this tremendous job of portraying a sort of Bronx bum or something like that. And I thought he really did the voice there perfectly.
It was basically his Grease character in 20 years.
Yeah, after 20 years of disillusionment and failure and drinking too much and smoking too much.
The film got to number 1 on the 6th of April 1990 and stayed there for 3 weeks.
Pretty impressive. It's certainly not a bad film at all.
Higher than 31% or lower?
Oh, a lot higher, surely.
55%.
55. Yeah, okay, that's fair enough.
The sequel was actually released later on the same year. We don't have it in our timeline here. They have another baby voiced by Roseanne Barr.
As they call her in America, talented, but only in America.
She's basically been blacklisted.
She very, very definitely did it to herself. Even some of her closest fellow cast members down the decades have all grown to hate her now.
What do you think the score was for Look Who's Talking To?
Must be lower.
13%.
Wow.
But it did well enough to warrant another sequel.
It did well enough that they decided to pay for another sequel.
Look Who's Talking Now, which introduced two dogs voiced by Danny DeVito and Diane Keaton.
Is it any wonder Danny DeVito's career sort of just died from there? He was playing the Penguin, for God's sake. The world was his oyster.
What do you think the score was for Look Who's Talking Now?
It doesn't deserve to be above single digits. So I'm actually going to say lower than 13%.
Oh, it's not above single digits, I'll tell you that.
5?
0%.
But Look Who's Talking was all right, and it got 3 weeks at the top.
Followed by The Craze, directed by Peter Medak, starring Billy Whitelaw, Tom Bell, and of course Martin and Gary Kemp.
Ronnie Cray, Reggie Cray, identical twins who rose from poverty to power.
People are afraid he can just do anything. Glamour is fear.
From obscurity to fame.
You know the Beatles? I believe they know us.
From the back streets to the attention of the world.
These boys are special. These boys are a new kind.
I think it's a great film. The story has been done better, in my opinion, especially in films like Legend, but it is a really, really good
I
film.
think in terms of accuracy, it's certainly been done better. I think in terms of style, you've got to hand it to Peter Medak. You can forgive the inaccuracies because it's done so beautifully.
Was the Rotten Tomato score better than 55%?
Yes.
82%.
Oh, excellent.
So The Craze was number 1 on 27th of April 1990 and stayed there for 1 week. And it was replaced by Nuns on the Run, directed by Jonathan Lynn and starring Eric Idle and Robbie Coltrane.
Brian and Charlie were a couple of average, hard-working gangsters.
Hit the dick when you're dead!
You shot Louis, you twerp!
Who'd had enough.
I really hate this bank job.
No insurance?
No job security.
You want to work for somebody else?
No. You know what we ought to do? Is steal the money for ourselves. Let go of me! I'm trying to commit a major crime!
Now,
Hold it!
Are you off your trolley?
Throw them bags over here.
they'll need more than divine inspiration.
We're out of gas! You stupid dummy!
They'll need a miracle.
What is this place? We'll never get to the airport. The place will be crawling with cops. What are we going to do?
And what is your name?
Sister Inviolata of the Immaculate Conception.
And yours?
Sister Euphemia of the Five Wounds. 5 wounds for short.
So I saw this years ago and I don't remember it at all.
I'm actually a bit of a fan of Nuns on the Run. Coltrane and Idol make a very good partnership. They're playing a pair of gangsters who basically they decided they want to pack it in, take all their rotten gains and move to Brazil to retire. They haven't learned to be good guys. They just realized it's getting too dangerous for them and their boss doesn't want to let them go. They're trying to run away before the police can corner them and before their boss can corner them. And they find themselves not entirely intentionally sneaking into a nunnery, pretending to be part of the sisterhood in there.
This was Robbie Coltrane's first Catholic-based comedy, but it wasn't his last, was it?
No, it certainly wasn't. It's still quite a good film. There's some funny jokes in it. I wouldn't say it's a classic, but it was quite nice back in the early 90s that Britain was making any film. It was actually on top for 3 weeks as well. What rating do I think the Tomato people have given it?
Even considering how much you like the film, I think you have to admit it's not going to be as high as 82%.
No, I wouldn't expect it to be.
43%.
43, okay.
And next we have The Witches, directed by Nicholas Roeg and starring Angelica Houston, May Zetterling, Jason Fisher, who was one of the kids from Parenthood, and Rowan Atkinson.
From the incredible imagination of Jim Henson and director Nicholas Roeg comes a fascinating new fantasy adventure. The Witches. For when a little boy accidentally stumbles into their secret world, he finds they've got a lot more power than he ever imagined.
Grandma, it's me, Luke. Luke. They turned me into a mouse. Oh, my. It was the Grand High Witch.
Join Luke on his remarkable journey. Now, the witches are on his tail.
Whoa.
And he must scurry around their evil plots. Squeak past every danger. Finally setting the trap that will save the world from the witches.
You are in for a treat.
We must stop them.
So obviously this is based on a Roald Dahl book. It's considered a bit of a classic, this one. Little trivia for you. During the meeting with all the witches, have a look at the witches in the audience. 90% of them are male, and one of them is Michael Palin.
That's something for me to look out for if I ever decide to watch The Witches.
Have you not seen it?
Oh, God, I saw it years and years and years ago. There's very, very little I remember about it.
I love The Witches. It's a fun film for kids who want a little bit of a good scare. Brilliant effects work from the Jim Henson Workshop. Got to number 1 on the 25th of 5th, 1990 and stayed there for 1 week. What do you think the rating was, Martin?
I think actually it's probably going to be quite high.
93%.
Wow.
It is the highest rated film on our list.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And then on the 1st of June 1990,
one day before my birthday,
the number one film at the box office, and I'm sure you went to see this for your birthday.
No, I didn't.
Was Pretty Woman, directed by Gary Marshall and starring Richard Gere, Julia Roberts, and Ralph Bellamy.
I think it was Rafe.
Is it Rafe Bellamy? Sorry.
I think it is, yeah.
Could you tell me how to get to Beverly Hills?
Sure. For $5.
You can't charge me for directions.
I can do anything I want to, baby. I ain't lost.
All right, okay. You have change for 20?
For 20, I'll show you person. Wow.
Impressed?
You kidding me? I come here all the time. Well, color me happy. There's a sofa in here for 2.
Close your mouth, dear.
Who is this girl here? Does she work? She's in sales.
Touchstone Pictures presents the story of a date.
This isn't a date, it's business.
That led to a deal.
I have a business proposition for you. I'm going to be in town until Sunday. I'd like you to spend the week with me.
That's becoming a dream come true.
Time to shop. Get rid of your gum.
All right.
I don't believe you did that. You're going to be spending an obscene amount of money in here. So we're going to need a lot more help sucking up to us because that's what we really like. You understand me?
Sir, if I may say so, you're in the right store and the right city, for that matter.
Actually, the truth of the matter is, I didn't see this until something like 9 years later.
I've never seen it.
No, you're missing nothing, actually. I've never understood what the obsession was with it.
A lot of people do hold it in very high regard, don't they?
They're idiots.
So we already know that we're not going to beat the witches. What score do you think Pretty Woman got?
They'll probably go something like 75.
You are 10% off. 65%.
That's better, but it's still more than it deserves. Boring film. Really boring film. It was 1st of June till 22nd of June that Pretty Woman was top.
Next, we have the generically titled Revenge, directed by Tony Scott, starring Kevin Costner, Anthony Quinn, and Madeleine Stowe.
Kevin Costner is a man who loves his freedom.
I'm going on a vacation, man. I'm not going to work for anybody, all right?
It's good to see you. Anthony Quinn is a man who loves his power.
This is Mireya, my wife. This is Jay, my friend.
Tippy's told me a lot about you.
She was the last thing in the world he wanted.
Do you think my wife is beautiful?
Hi.
Hello.
What do you want me to say? Of course.
What are you doing here?
Well, the truth is I was bored.
Until she became the only thing in the world he wanted.
Do you feel the way I feel?
I don't know that I have the right to feel anything.
Because a woman like that
Forget about right or wrong.
will do almost anything to keep her.
When love turns to obsession.
For a long time, I didn't let myself want anything.
This is what we don't do. We don't forget who we are. We don't forget where we are.
You think that you're taking another man's way?
There are no rules.
I love you.
Shall I have him killed?
Kevin Costner, Anthony Quinn, Madeleine Stowe in a film by Tony Scott.
Where is she?
Revenge.
Never seen it. I bet somebody is trying to get even with somebody in it. I know I'm really putting my neck out.
A retired US Navy pilot comes to Mexico where he falls in love with the wife of a powerful businessman. The consequences will be cruel and unforeseen. It got to number 1 on the 22nd of June 1990 and stayed there for 1 week.
And the next one's actually one of my favourites on the list.
Are we going to talk about the score?
Oh, well, is there any point? I don't know, because I haven't seen it. I've got nothing to work with there, except it does all sound very generic.
33%. So the next film on the list is another one of my favourites.
Yes, as I said, just
genuinely great film, this one.
And the start of another rather long franchise, which has to be said, did rather quickly decline in quality.
Yes, and has recently come to a definite end.
Yes, thank goodness, I think. They really did kill the goose that laid the golden egg with this one. The original, going back to it, is enormous fun. It's sort of like Jaws in the desert, only deliberately comedic rather than accidentally comedic.
So if you haven't guessed from that description, we're talking about the movie Tremors, directed by Ron Underwood and starring Kevin Bacon, Fred Ward and Finn Carter.
You guys better get the hell out of here. There's a killer on the loose.
Who could be doing it?
Is that a snake?
I'll give you boys $5 for this. 20.
That's how they get you. They're under the ground.
What the hell are those things? How could they eat a whole station wagon?
But where do they come from?
I vote for outer space. No way these are local boys.
You see, they're headed right for us.
No Richter scale can measure it.
They're coming!
No scientist can explain it.
Bert, they're under the ground.
You didn't get penetration even with the elephant gun.
Run, run!
And no one knows what to call it.
Megaworms or suckers or suckoids.
And it has to be said, it is probably the single most mentioned movie in the world, simply because of 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. This is where it all started, ladies and gentlemen. It is tremendous fun. It's rather scary and leery at times, and people are being eaten by these gigantic sandworms. But they never quite get to the bottom of exactly where the things come from. It's often speculated that they were the result of some kind of nuclear test in the desert, but no one knows for absolutely sure.
Despite how great Kevin Bacon as Valentine and Fred Ward as Earl are, I think my favourite character, and I think most people's favourite character, is going to be Michael Gross's Burt Gummer.
Absolutely. Michael Gross, who was probably most famous at the time for being the dad in Family Ties. He plays a real, it's almost like a religious gun nut, except he has no religion. He just worships his guns, he and his wife. And they basically become the sort of the spearhead of the counterattack against the worms. One of the worms manages to break their way into the house, and the rest of the village hears screams, and then suddenly they hear this enormous roar of gunfire echoes all the way down the valley.
Oh, I love that. And they just start pulling weapons off the walls.
Yeah, it's because the worm has made the mistake of crashing into their basement, which is where they keep their entire gunnery arsenal. And they have got millions of guns, and they eventually just blow the thing to death.
Broke into the wrong goddamn rec room, didn't you, you bastard?
There's a reason why they made him the main character in all the sequels.
Yeah.
It's also an early appearance by Ariana Richards as the little girl with the pogo stick, who then went on to play Lex in Jurassic Park.
Did she? Never recognised her. Yeah, I love it. Absolutely love Tremors. I quite enjoy Tremors too. It's not quite as good fun. I think it's definitely missing Val quite a lot in that because he doesn't appear in that one. 29th of June 1990 all the way through to the 6th of July. It deserved better than that.
What do you think the score was?
I think this will be high. In public terms, it's generally always been very highly rated.
88.
Well, hey!
The reason it only stayed at number 1 for a week, in my opinion, is because the marketing push behind this next film was massive.
This next film had a very unfair advantage in terms of the amount of promotion that was put in behind it.
Well, it was Disney, wasn't it?
Do I like this particular film? It's okay. It certainly wasn't worth all the hype that was thrown at it. And I will have to admit, at that time, I was very distracted by the World Cup. But it was impossible for it not to register on me. A lot was being made of the fact that Warren Beatty was back to try and reconquer the world in the 90s. Also, Madonna was in it, but you have to take the bad with the good.
So the film was Dick Tracy, directed by and starring Warren Beatty. Also starred Charlie Cosmo, Michael Donovan O'Donnell, and Madonna. Where this film really falls down, in my opinion, is that it wants so much to be Batman.
Yeah. First start, the fact that Warren Beatty was chosen for it.
Well, it's not that Warren Beatty was chosen, it's that Warren Beatty basically bought the rights.
Yeah, he chose himself. The poses that he's doing, he's clearly trying to do Michael Keaton. He really wishes he was wearing a cloak rather than an overcoat.
What I will say is it does a really good job of actually looking like the comics.
Yeah, it does. It did all that weird sort of slightly psychedelic lighting effects, didn't it?
Yeah, and the exaggerated faces of the villains. Al Pacino as the villain.
You're never going to get an underplayed performance.
He's clearly having the time of his life. Whether it's a good performance or not, he's enjoying it.
He's having the time of his life while clearly not caring whether the audience are having a time of his life.
Dick Tracy got to number 1 on the 6th of July 1990 and stayed there for 1 week when it was replaced by Back to the Future Part 3, directed by Robert Zemeckis and starring Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, and again, Mary Steenburgen.
Baby fly! That's right, Tanner! Come on, run, you damn!
There's some wonderful set pieces in Back to the Future Part 3, and how the hell they accomplished the steam train business, or the whole of that sequence, using 1980s technology.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy, isn't it?
It looked absolutely fantastic. Again, it's a really clever plot, some lovely ideas in it. My only problem with this is all the problem I have with part 2, is Marty McFly's character has clearly been rewritten backwards here. There is no indication whatsoever in the first film that Marty has a problem with people calling him names, particularly. In this film and in the second film, he goes absolutely crazy anytime someone calls him chicken or yellow. It feels forced in, and this is actually, it goes to the part, it's fundamental to the plot that he reacts that way.
I like how a lot of the stuff that they set up in the second film actually pays off in the third film.
Well, the original idea was it was only going to be one film, so it kind of has to do that. It's just they quickly realised originally it was all going to be just the first film, and it wasn't until something like 1988 that they finally got down to go, should we pick up where we left off? And they decided, yeah, we'll do that. Wonderful idea for setting it in the future and then suddenly having a thing in the Old West. But they realised very quickly there was too much, so they had to split into 2 films, expand the second one, which is where you get that alternative 1985. So that it has to tie everything up because that's what it was coming out of.
There's a few other little anecdotes about Back to the Future Part 3 as well. Like the bit where Marty's been hoisted up by his neck, the harness slipped and he was actually choking.
He was actually hanged. They didn't realise until about 30 seconds that he wasn't acting.
But there's also the dancing scene where Biff is forcing him to dance by shooting him, and he does the moonwalk. They didn't record the sound on the set. What they actually did for the sound of the moonwalk, they called in Michael Winslow from the Police Academy films to do the sound effects.
Oh, right, okay. I suppose that would work quite well, yeah. Oh, I never knew that.
He's only come out and said it quite recently. So, Back to the Future Part 2 got 63% on Rotten Tomatoes. What do you think Part 3 got? Was it better or worse?
I got the feeling it was higher.
I always thought Part 3 was the black sheep of the family that no one really liked that much. Apart from me, I love Part 3. I love all of them, to be honest.
I love all of them.
So, I was very surprised to find that Part 3 actually got 80%.
80%? Oh, gosh.
So, Back to the Future Part 3 got to number 1 on the 13th of July 1990 and stayed there for 2 weeks. And it was replaced another one of my favourite films.
It does have a very clever plot. It's one of Arnold Schwarzenegger's finest hours.
One of Paul Verhoeven's finest hours.
We are talking, of course, about Total Recall.
Starring Arnie, Rachel Ticontin, Sharon Stone, and Michael Ironside.
Get ready for a surprise!
We can't let him run around. He knows too much. They've got your bug. I get a lock. There! The bug's in your skull.
Take this thing out of the case and stick it up your nose.
Based on a short story by Philip K. Dick called We Can Remember It For You Wholesale.
What we got is basically there's a guy who's living a really happy family life. He's got a beautiful wife. He's got a job he likes. But at the same time, he has fantasies. One of the things he wants to do is he wants to visit the colony on Mars. And he sees advertised a place that allows you to create your own holiday in your head, as it were, by projecting an adventure where you're somebody other than who you are, which makes you think that you're actually living that adventure then and there. What happens when he goes to have this holiday memory implanted in his brain is the people providing the service discover that he's actually already got a personality overlay. And in fact, not long afterwards, he discovers that in fact the life he's been living is itself actually a dream, and he only met his wife about 6 weeks earlier in reality, and everything else he remembered had actually been made up. He then discovers that there really is something going on Mars, and he has to go there in person to get his memory back. Well, not necessarily get his memory back, but basically to get rid of somebody who's trying to eliminate him. So he goes to Mars, gets involved in all sorts of violent action before eventually getting cornered by the big crime boss, who unforgivably does a line about in time for cornflakes.
In 30 seconds, you'll be dead. Then I'll blow this place up and be home in time for cornflakes.
And then he discovers the whole thing was actually set up by the crime boss himself, and that in the real world, Hauser was actually his best friend, and they deliberately went under the personality overlay so that he could help infiltrate a resistance movement against the crime boss's control over Mars.
It's very twisty-turny. You're not quite sure at the end what's actually happened.
It deliberately ends on an ambiguous note because suddenly it occurs to him, what I've just lived through is an adventure on Mars. in which I'm the hero.
It does end with Blue Skies on Mars, which is a callback to earlier in the film.
Yeah.
Even if you're not into all like the twisty-turny stuff, it's just a great action film.
It is. I think it does go a little bit far at times. Some of the violence is so incredibly bloody. I don't think the film needs it. The action, yeah, but the explicit blood and gore and thing, I mean, you got this bit at one point where a guy is about to fall out of a lift, and the lift goes past the point of a ceiling, and therefore it basically takes his arms off. I was actually holding onto the hands of the arms. We don't need that. I'm not being prudish. If that's what you like, good luck to you. But I think the film would have worked just fine without it.
Some great effect work for the time as well. Some of it still holds up now. Not all of it, I would say.
There was a remake about 10 years ago, which I thought lost all its sense of humour, really.
So Total Recall got to number 1 on the 27th of July 1990 and stayed there for 2 weeks. Do you think it was higher score than Back to the Future Part 3 or lower?
It'll be lower because Back to the Future Part 3 got scored very well indeed.
82.
82, so I actually beat it. Oh, very good.
Next up we have Days of Thunder, directed by Tony Scott, starring Tom Cruise, Robert Duvall, Nicole Kidman. It's basically Top Gun with cars and not as good.
Nowhere near as good. This was the start of that era when Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman had to be together in absolutely everything, even when it was very clear that one or the other wasn't really well suited to be in the part that they had.
Yeah, I don't think we have to spend much time talking about this film, to be honest.
Well, I can't. I can barely remember it. All I remember is I didn't enjoy it.
So it got to number 1 on the 10th of August 1990, stayed there for 1 week.
40%.
I'll take that as lower. 38%.
And then we're now on to the final film before Nightmare resumed.
Before we talk about this film, I hate this film.
Hmm.
I mean, I like this film. I actually find this film quite fun. I hate the title.
Yeah.
Because I got bullied the crap out of. Because of this fucking film.
I just hate it because it's basically it's double entendre to double entendre again.
So the film is Die Hard 2, Die Harder, and it stars Bruce Willis, Bonnie Bedelia, William Sadler, and Reginald VelJohnson.
Washington, D.C. International Airport.
What's this about?
Oh, just a feeling I have.
Ouch. When you get those feelings, insurance companies start to go bankrupt.
The tower's lost control.
Instrument landing system is down.
Backup systems won't come up. We've got blizzard conditions. Zero visibility.
Attention all controllers. We have a code red alert.
There's panic in the air.
This is a professional mercenary. You got the world's biggest drug dealer on his way here now. What do you need, a slide rule to figure this out?
You get the hell out of my office before I throw you out of my damn airport.
And terror on the ground.
Who is this?
Who I am is unimportant. What I want is very important. Oh, we are just up to our neck in terrorists again, John.
But for police officer John McClane, when I'm right, it's just another Christmas.
You're the wrong guy in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Story of my life.
I don't dislike any of the Die Hard films. I'm not a particular fan of the first one. This one I actually enjoyed more. But my favourite one of the franchise is probably Die Hard with a Vengeance. And that's probably because Die Hard with a Vengeance wasn't supposed to be a Die Hard film. It was supposed to be a completely different film called Simon Says. And then that was developed into a Lethal Weapon film.
Ah, okay.
Which, when you look at Die Hard with Vengeance, makes much more sense.
It does say something about the superficiality, probably, of both franchises. In fairness to it, I don't actually get bored watching Die Hard films. It's just, I take nothing away with me afterwards.
My wife is like, every Christmas we got to watch Die Hard, because Die Hard obviously is a Christmas film.
Yeah, okay.
And so is Die Hard 2 in that argument.
I'm not going through that with you again.
Die Hard 2, Die Harder was directed by Rennie Harlin.
And that stayed there for 3 weeks, which took us up to the start of season 4 of Nightmare.
So, do you think Die Hard 2 scored better than Days of Thunder?
Yes.
69%.
But there we go. In pop culture terms, we have reached the start of season 4, and it is rather curious to see some of the things that were sort of contemporary with the start of season 4. Especially to discover that Die Hard had only reached its second film at that point. Part of my mind sort of thinks we'd be knocking on the door of the fourth film by then.
Before we actually move on to Series 4, we've got one more episode. So be sure to join us for Part 2 of Episode 0, where we'll be discussing some of the more important news stories from the off-season. In the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter. We're at NightmarePod.
If you want to support the podcast, we're NightmarePod on Patreon.
Speaking of Patreon, here's a shout-out to Keepers of the Book of Quests, Peter Peter Pulsford, David N. Rabbit, Paul McIntosh, and our newest supporter, Scott Evans.
Hi, Scott. Also, shout outs to the advisors Benjamin Bloom, Peter Sidorn, David Thompson, and Stephen Whelan.
And Dungeoneer Peter Corridge.
I have no idea why I said Whelan like that. It just it's sort of like the energy just sort of dissipate from me as I was finishing. Support us on Patreon at Dungeoneer level or above to get your name mentioned on the podcast. Higher level perks also receive merchandise, have access to exclusive episodes, and if you pledge as a keeper of the Book of Quests, we'll even offer you the chance to be a guest on the podcast.
Our website is nightmarepod.co.uk,
and if you're looking for Temporal Discussion merchandise, including t-shirts, stickers, and other products, it's at nightmarepod.redbubble.com.
You can email us at podcast@nightmarepod.co.uk,
and just keep telling yourself it's only 1990.
Isn't it?